Hello everyone, Chaos here, and welcome to another old school RuneScape video. Over the past few years, I've been giving you guys a bunch of tips and tricks for the first video of the year, and 2025 is no exception. We continue this tradition with our biggest one so far, coming at you with 180 tips and tricks for old school RuneScape. Boys and girls, for every new subscriber and a like on this video, my puppy Moneva will get a treat. So make sure you're subscribed with notifications on, and you can also join our Discord server with the link in the description for more tips and help from our amazing community. The only disclaimer I have for this video is that if you notice any repeated tips from previous years, is because I think they are just that important and I want to bring them up again for new players. This time we will focus a lot more on scaling and PVM tips, as miscellaneous ones will be mentioned at the beginning of the video. That being said, let's begin the first video of 2025. We are going to start with security, and if you value your RuneScape account too much just like I do, make a brand new Google account for which you only use for old school RuneScape and nothing else to avoid data leaks. Once your new Google account is set, and if you haven't already, transfer all of your characters to a Jagex account. With this, chances of being genuinely hacked go even lower, and it's a more convenient way to launch old school RuneScape. If you want to be even more protected, something I simply cannot live without nowadays is the Google Two-Factor Authenticator app. Link it to both your Google and the Jagex accounts to two-factor authentication to be extra safe. Of course, none of this will help if you have something sussy going on your PC. To lower the risk, get an antivirus you trust to keep an eye for your files. Not a sponsor, but I've been using Malwarebytes for a long time now, and I absolutely love it. In case everything else fails, the last line of defense for your account is a bank PIN. Make sure to set a 4-digit PIN whenever you want to access your bank, and to make it something not related to you like a birthday or even your real-life bank PIN. Whenever you get emails from Jagex, always check that they mention you by your character name. Nowadays, we have a lot of extremely believable phishing emails, so always check that it comes from a reliable source and not a spoofed account. If you ever see a popular streamer on Twitch announcing that they are quitting, this will almost always be a scam. Similarly, if you see someone in the game announcing a quitting giveaway on YouTube, both will lead you to a phishing website that looks like the forums. A common scam that has been happening for several years now is players offering items for lower than they appear to be worth. Stuff like one dose menified remedy will always sell for pennies on the dollar, so never trade these cockroaches. A more elaborate scam, especially if you're wearing expensive items on the Grand Exchange, is someone giving you money and asking you to buy items because they hit the limit. This will almost always end up with you getting socially engineered to scam you and lure you to a PvP world. And finally, for account security and scams, make sure to never interact with gambling bots at the GE. Just like me, I bet you are wondering why they are still a thing, and the answer is that, sadly, they keep working, and almost always will. Let's move on to in-game settings to make gameplay smoother, starting with hit splat tint. If you enable the setting, not only will you be able to notice when you do a max hit, but in multi-combat encounters, other people's hits will be less bright. In case you're a clue scroll fanatic, you can enable the option for the game to give you a warning when you already have a clue scroll in the bank. This makes it so you know when you would have gotten a clue scroll from a specific source. Go to the search bar and type transparent, and you can either enable or disable chatbox transparency. In my personal opinion, it's really weird to have it transparent because it could blend in with the background, but this one is completely up to you. There's another option to use the middle mouse button to move the camera. And if you have a mouse with multiple buttons, you can keybind one of the buttons to the middle mouse button for easier camera movement to avoid using the arrows. A tip I always give people is to make use of F keys to navigate around the menu. I have F1 for inventory, F2 for prayers, F3 for spellbook, and F4 for equipment. If you want to get better at the game, I would advise you to get used to this as soon as possible. A great addition in recent months is that if you enable the option called Equip Items when looting your grave, whenever you right-click Loot Your Items in case you die, you will automatically equip all the items you were wearing when you died. A super convenient one is to enable automatic rune and ammo pickup. Whenever you grab runes and ammo from the ground, they will automatically go to your ammo slot and to your rune pouch if that type of rune is already in the pouch. Another one I started using recently is the ability to automatically turn on run whenever you have the energy available. In case you go down to 0 and drink a stamina potion, you will start running without clicking the orb. There's also the option to automatically smash vials and the plant pots from the settings menu. In the past, you would need to go to the Barbarian that originally teaches you this near the Barbarian outpost, but now you can do it from the settings. Finally, there's a setting for you to get notifications or pop-ups whenever you get a new collection log slot or get a combat achievement. This is purely to give you a bit of dopamine when you get progress for the account, whether it be collection logs or CAs. On to my top 10 favorite Runelite plugins, but we can't start without using Runelite. This is the most popular way to play the game nowadays, and make sure to download it from runelite.net or from the official OSRS website, which links it right there. Technically not a plugin, but the middle button between the plugins and the plugin hub is for you to create a Runelite profile. Log in with an email for Runelite to save all of your plugins and their settings in case you switch computers or use multiple PCs. The first plugin I recommend is 117HD. This will give OSRS a coat of fresh paint, but if your PC can't handle it, I recommend the use of a plugin called the GPU. This will make the game look much smoother and won't be that demanding on PC. A plugin I simply cannot live without nowadays is called the tile indicators. There's an option called highlighted true tile, which will give you the tile your character is always at. And this is important because animations may not match your exact location. And speak of the devil, NPC indicators is up next. With this plugin active, you'll be able to shift or right-click any NPC and use the option tag for you to see what tiles they occupy. This is especially useful for PvM and sometimes skilling. One of my most frequently asked plugins on stream is about the outlines around my items. Download the plugin inventory tags and shift a right-click on your items to pick a tag color. I do red for melee, green for ranged, and blue for magic. The visual metronome plugin will help you learn the tick system, giving you a visual cue of how long 0.6 seconds actually is. I personally use it at Zarpus for the Theater of Blood, but you can use it at any activity that requires timing. With ground markers, you'll also be able to highlight specific tiles on the ground to know where to stand depending on what you're doing. For bossing specifically, you have a lot of important tiles to kill your enemies as efficiently as possible. Menu Entry Swapper is great on its own, but we will highlight it for two other uses. The submenu item swaps will let you change either left click or shift click to interact with items in your inventory or even when buying from shops. Also in the item swap category, there's an option that says teleport submenus. When you enable it, and if you right click on an item that has multiple options, a submenu will appear giving you all the possible things you can click on. Okay, let's do 10 quick ones for our mobile brothers and sisters. Open the settings menu and search agility. Enable the option that says Agility Helper, and this will highlight parts of agility courses and even shortcuts in old school RuneScape. I wouldn't really recommend doing clue scrolls on mobile, but if this is your only option, you simply cannot do clues without a clue scroll solver. This will give you the answers to all the clue steps to compete with this Runelite plugin on PC. Thanks to the mobile rework in November of 2024, we got a new addition called Hotkeys. This works similarly to F-keys on the PC version of the game, and you can customize 5 different buttons across 3 profiles to have easier access for the menu. If you enable the option Tap to Drop, not only will you drop items whenever you tap on them to make skilling easier, but items that have other options will have different behavior, like emptying an essence pouch when you tap on it on this mode. If you are itching for some PvM on the go, there's a hotkey to activate your quick prayers, which will be accessible near your left thumb. This will avoid the need to click on that ever so tiny quick prayer orb next to the minimap for better accuracy. Under the hotkeys button, there's an arrow pointing to the upper right corner. This will show you a few buttons, one of which is the XP tracker. Click on it to see how much experience you are getting and your total experience gain for the session. The biggest addition to OSRS Mobile is Menu Entry Swapper. Open Settings and search the word Reordering. When this is active, long press anything like an NPC and click on the white circle on the top right of the menu to then reorder the options to your liking. The button with a little gnome on it is NPC Indicators. With this active, you can long press any NPC you want and either tag them individually or every NPC with that name. This is especially useful at areas where you can't see NPCs too well. Ground item also makes their way to OSRS Mobile, and by enabling the button that looks like a pile of bones, you will be able to either highlight or filter items on the ground. You can also do this with the icons next to the name, or manually adding them to a list. Last but not least, we have ground markers. Another feature ported from Runelite will allow you to long press any tile in the game, and give you the option to highlight it. You can also change the color of the tiles in the settings. Let's now move on to skilling, and we have a bunch of them in this category. Before we do, there was the quest experience rebalance in 2024, so if you haven't, go to Purdue at any location because he may have juicy experience lamps for you to claim. If you didn't know, Scurious has a higher experience multiplier when done in a group. Jagex did this to encourage teamwork, and the Rat King is now the best way to get combat experience with a small chance at a pretty cute pet. If you stay at Scurious and you already have your Ratabane weapons being a mace, a short bow, and a staff, you can use excess Scurious spines on the person outside the fight. He will offer experience lamps with even more experience for your effort. This one is mostly for newcomers, but remember that the higher your defense level, the better armor you can wear, and the higher defensive bonuses means that your enemies will hit less often. However, they will always have a static max hit. In 2024, the quest Curse of Arath was released, and with it we got the Zombie Axe. This is a 5-tick attack weapon with a higher max hit, so remember to always check out DPS calculators to know when you should use it, or a 4-tick weapon like a whip for Slayer. This one is pretty old at this point, but whenever you get a Slayer task like Dust Devils, Jellies, or Abyssal Demons to mention a few, you can take a Venator bow to the Catacombs of Kourend to do the task much faster thanks to this new toy. In case you can't use a Veni bow, the first part of Valimor introduced the Sunlight Hunter crossbow. This is now the new meta for ranged between a magic shortbow and a blowpipe, so make sure to use it from levels 66 to 75. And speaking of new items, the Sunfire Fanatic set is now the best in slot armor for prayer bonuses. You can use it at places where you would want to camp for extended periods of time with protection prayers active, and it's not super expensive. Doing activities around Valimor will award you with Bless the Bone Shards. You can then use these at the new prayer training activity, Offerings to Rallos, for up to 1.5 million prayer experience per hour when you have all the materials ready to train for a long time. Thanks to the combat rebalance update halfway through 2024, you may now auto-cast ancient spells with no delay. For some odd reason, ever since their introduction, it would take 1 tick for you to start attacking when clicking on an enemy. If you want effortless magic experience, you can go to the Araxide Cave in Mauritania and go to a spot full of spiders. Because they venom you every hit, you can spam the lunar spell Cure Me and get more than 400k experience per hour. When you achieve level 60 magic and defense, you'll be able to wear Bloodbark and Swamp Bark armor. For general use, stick to Bloodbark because the hat, the top and legs have a 1% magic damage bonus each, something that oddly enough the Swamp Bark armor doesn't have. The addition of Valimor introduced a new type of rune in the game called the Sunfire runes. When you use these for fire spells, you will give them 10% bonus damage, which will stack nicely with a Tome of Fire or enemies weak to fire spells. And speaking of tomes, we now have a new elemental tome in the game. The Wacolatl drops the Tome of Earth and Soil pages, giving elemental spells in their category a 10% damage boost. This is especially useful against enemies with this weakness. To close out the combat triangle for Dragonbane weapons, the Wacolatl also drops the new Dragon Hunter wand. If you're looking to do Metal Dragon tasks quicker at lower levels, you could give this new weapon a try. We have a new shortcut northeast of Shiloh Village, and this gave Achievement Diary owners a new nature runecrafting method for up to 70k XP and above 2 million GP per hour. If you have a cape, definitely give this a try. If you have the Abyssal Needle from Guardians of the Rift, and if you have 56 crafting, you can now make the Colossal Pouch and use it at any runecrafting level. This will now scale with the highest pouch you are able to use all the way up to level 85. In case you mess up when making new rooms for your house, open the house editing tool in the settings to be able to move and rotate rooms without having to delete them and build them again. This actually saved me a lot of problems on my way to 99. One of the biggest buffs to construction is that we can now use menu entry swapper to change left click options for furniture. This will naturally increase experience per hour because we will have to do a lot less mouse movement. If you have done any Halloween event, use the pumpkin on your POH. If you have a pool of rejuvenation on the adjacent room, your character will not get stuck behind the pool, saving just a few ticks per visit to your house. Mahogany Homes also got a big buff, and depending on what your contract you are doing, you'll be able to one-click furniture space to build whatever you're required to, instead of opening a little menu and pressing the option you want. When you get enough Mahogany Home points, you can buy a Saw. You can now toggle what hand you want to wear this item on for you to be able to wear both an Imcando hammer and the saw to save 2 inventory spaces when training construction. The new Colossal Worm course is a new semi-AFK way to train agility. This skill has always been pretty demanding, but this course has a few sections that make your character wait for a little bit, so for low intensity gains, this is pretty much it. For some odd reason, and I really don't know who was asking for this, Marks of Grace are now available to spawn at almost any agility course and not to just from rooftops anymore. If anyone knows why this was, please let me know in a comment. The Brimhaven Agility course, something you would only do for collection logs in the past, is now actually a competitive training method for the mid-game. This activity now gives both experience and the shop tickets to double dip on XP and items. If you have balls or ovaries of steel, the Wilderness Agility course is now the most profitable way of training agility. The high risk versus high reward aspect makes it so you get more loot the more you stay here, so come here to get the blood pumping for a little bit. Thanks to a big skilling update also halfway through the year, many agility shortcuts were changed, like removing diary requirements, and most importantly, amazing new ones like the Vieldi Caves or the one to the Dagonoth Kings. Lastly, for agility, keep an eye out for future updates because there's a potential change coming to run energy to make agility more meaningful, and not having to rely on stamina potions all the time. This is not even a beta yet, so don't get too excited. Herblore can be pretty demanding due to only being able to make 14 potions per inventory, but you have a few potions where you can make in batches of 27. For these, you can grab many stackable secondaries for more AFK time like stamina potions or anti-venom. And speak of the devil, by adding a new item by the name Araxide Venom Sac to an anti-venom plus, you can make the extended anti-venom plus for up to 6 minutes of venom immunity. This is especially useful at bosses like Zul'Ra, Vorkath, and Araxor. If you want to train the skill at mastering Mixology, the new herbal activity in Aldurin, get the Mixology plugin to highlight the levers for all 3 ingredients, and for the tables you need to use at each potion for your orders. When you get enough points from Mixology, the Alchemist glasses have a 10% chance to save a secondary when making potions, and other useful items like the Reagents pouch let you store up to 26 secondary ingredients for more AFK time when training. We got 2 new potions to the game, starting with a Prayer Regeneration Potion. A 4-dose potion will restore a grand total of 264 prayer points over 24 minutes, and is now a staple for PvM activities like Casual Slayer and the Inferno. And speaking of Casual Slayer, the other potion is a potion of goading. When you drink it, non-aggressive Slayer monsters will turn aggressive in a radius around you, giving you some precious AFK time at places like the Slayer Tower and the Catacombs of Kourend for more grind. If you want a chill way to train thieving, waiting for a kid to distract the wealthy citizens at the bazaar in Civitas Illafortis will give you around 20 to 30 seconds of auto pickpocket every minute. You can get easy clues and house keys. You can use these house keys to enter houses which don't have anyone inside, and steal their valuables for even more thieving experience. You will need to be alert of a whistle, which means the house owner is coming back, and to go to another house. The scaling update a few months ago also made it so different NPCs give you clue scrolls when pickpocketing them. Gnomes give you medium clues, paladins give hard clues, and heroes give elite clues if you want to pickpocket them for experience. Rogue chests in the wilderness are now the most profitable thieving training method, along the highest experience for up to 300k per hour. But like anything in the wildy, a PKer could log in and shaft you in a matter of seconds. After completion of the quest to Death on the Isle, talking to the person in the basement awards you with a custom needle. This is a single inventory spot item which works as a needle and infinite thread to finally make that extra dragonhide body. At the time of making this video, crafting drift nets in Fossil Island is the only profitable way of training crafting at a pretty low level. As most of you know, this skill is mostly a money sink, but drift nets will almost always be on high demand. Fletching is a super boring skill, and if you want to get it over quicker, you can add feathers to dart tips or unfinished bolts on your phone. Use the magnifying glass tool to have more space to tap, and do it while watching a movie or doing something else. It may not be one of the worst skills in the game soon, because the third part of Valamor coming in 2025 will give us a new way to train fletching. So keep an eye out for future guide, and also for a more interactive way to train this snooze fest. If you want a more fun way to train Slayer, the Slayer partner feature was reintroduced in 2024. Invite one of your friends to get a Slayer task you can do in the same area, and watch the kill count needed for the task going down a lot quicker. Slaughter and Expeditious Bracelets only have a chance to proc upon Slayer target death. This means that you can wear your gloves normally up until the end of the kill, in case you want to enjoy offensive stats from the other glove item. This next one may sound a little weird, but I recommend watching my 2024 Slayer tips video for a bunch of things to make Slayer a lot more efficient, otherwise I would be recycling a lot of points made in that video. So go watch it after this one. Same goes for Hunter and my Hunter Rumors video. Thanks to the addition of the Hunter Guild, Hunter Rumors is now objectively the best way to train the skill. Whenever you can, go see how to block rumors, make them faster, and much more. When you do enough Hunter Rumors, you will get a few items. One of them is a little backpack, and you can also get 4 pieces of the Hunter outfit. If you put the entire set in the backpack, it will give you the benefit without having to wear it. If your Quetzal whistle runs out of charges, you can teleport to Valamor and then go to the Quetzal directly east of the teleport location. You can then ride it to go to the Hunter Guild and recharge your whistle with the highest amount. Getting into mining, after you can access Camptorum in Valamor, the mines here provide a good bit of AFK time and more experience than something like shooting stars. You will also get Blessed Bone Shards for a good chunk of prayer experience. Volcanic Mine was changed so it is slightly better to do solo and even in a smaller team. Prior to this, the destabilization mechanic would be a little too inconvenient for a solo player to take care of vents, giving you less time to mine. The Blast to Mine received a visual update, and you now have more spots to comfortably take part in this activity. Mechanics stay the same as well as the way to loot ore, and if you haven't already, give this activity a try to spice it up. Shooting stars were updated so that it will always crash down at higher tiers for even more AFK when you find one. I recommend using OSRS Portal to see star locations, and get to a new one as soon as the current one disappears. Finally for mining, there's now a hopper in the upper part of the mine which will naturally increase experience per hour. You will need to unlock the ability to use it for a generous amount of golden nuggets, but this is definitely well worth the price. Remember that by using the blast furnace you need half of the amount of coal you would normally need to smelt any type of ore. This is especially useful for rune, adamant and mithril, and it is one of the best ways to make money with smithing. With the addition of the Giant's Foundry, we got a new skilling outfit by the name Smith's Uniform. By wearing the full set, you will create weapons and armor at an anvil 1 tick faster, but it's not really recommended if you want as much AFK time as possible. The Smith's Uniform includes a pair of gloves. You can combine these with ice gloves to benefit from both their passive effects when doing smithing activities like the blast furnace, or even the Giant's Foundry itself to keep the fashionscape. One of the few activities free-to-play players have gotten in recent years by the name Ruins of Camdozo offers a wearable hammer you can use for smithing. It lets you smith an extra item per inventory, and it's also useful at Barbarian Assault. When you get the rewards from Temporos, the fishing barrel lets you store 28 fish to increase AFK time. This is very popular for fishing spots far away from a bank, and a staple place for Ironmen to use it at is the Karamboan fishing spot. Another reward from Temporos are Spirit Flakes. Not only are they used to give the angler outfit a cooler look, but if you have them in your inventory when fishing, you will consume one for a chance of 50% at double the fish whenever you catch one. When you have enough Karamboan, this is the only fish available to be cooked at a speed of 1 per tick. This is the fastest cooking training method in the game, providing up to 900k per hour if you do them at the mid-skilled. Something I need to keep reminding myself is that the cooking gauntlets don't work for every single item you can cook. They help you out with lobsters, swordfish, coyote meat, monkfish, sharks, and anglerfish. Instead of training fire making the traditional way or via the winter toad, you can now make a fire near a bank and use logs on it to make a bonfire. This will give you 33% of the experience each log provides in exchange for a ton of AFK time. For a more entertaining way to train fire making, Shade to Morton is the way to go. If using Urium Shades and Redwood Logs to get gold keys, you have a small chance of obtaining Elite Clue Scrolls from their respective chests. If everything else fails and you go back to Winter Toad, remember that this was updated to make it better. We also have too many changes to cram in here, so go check out a recent video I did on the changes to get up to speed. If you want to train woodcutting, doing this on a forestry world is encouraged because you get a boost for up to 10 levels if multiple people are chopping the same tree. If you want to give it a go, the official forestry world is 444. By getting yourself a felling axe, and with Forester's Ration in your backpack, you have a small chance for the tree not to give you logs for extra experience. This gives more AFK time and is recommended to do for either magics or redwoods. When you go on your farm runs, spam clicking every type of crop will make you harvest them faster. When you want to add compost or replant your seed, you'll need to wait a few ticks to avoid being interrupted. This one is from 2023, but one of my friends recently asked about it. Your magic secateurs work whenever they are in your inventory, and you don't need to wear them for the full effect. You gotta wonder why this was changed, but no complaints. The game has multiple ways of increasing product from harvesting them, like magic secateurs, compost, Atta seed, and the farming cape, but it's not like it directly increases yield. Rather, it lowers the chance of using a harvest life. And the last one in the scaling category, the higher your farming level, the better chances at obtaining higher level seeds when pickpocketing master farmers. This was done to combat the thieving bots, so get a higher farming level before thieving. Time for PvM tips specifically for bosses. Starting with the Abyssal Sire, if you don't have a shadow to kill the respiratory systems, the best way to take care of them now is with the Scorching Bow. Get it to make Sire a lot less AIDS. When killing the Alchemical Hydra, if you take a Bone Crusher necklace with you and wear it towards the end of the kill, it will restore quite a few prayer points to extend your trips. It's not too bad because the bones are not great profit nowadays. The Amoxiliatl will put blocks of ice around the arena for one of its attacks. You can click on each of these every tick to make the mechanic go a lot faster, and get back to it as soon as possible since the fight is already pretty quick. For Araxor, it is advised to take the Hunter's Sunlight Crossbow because of the 3-tick attack speed. You'll kill the green and white spiders and get back on Araxor quickly, instead of the Ballista, which is a huge delay after the small spiders. For any of the wildy bosses, whether it be the baby or the big ones, you can activate a plugin called Wilderness Player Alert to notify you of PKers. Additionally, if you have more money, you can bund up an alt and make it sit outside the cave. Whenever you go on Barrel's runs, an item called a Strange Lockpick is absolutely necessary. It will let you bypass the doors you normally cannot interact with, cutting on a lot of time, especially on that annoying puzzle before the chest. Instead of hopping around finding an empty world for Cerberus by peeking on the winch, the Keymaster can now tell you what's going on at each of the rooms. Just pray that nobody logs in near the entrance and joins your world. Summer Pies is a recommended food for the Chaos Elemental. It can deal a lot of damage, especially if using budget armor, but it has an annoying special attack which unequips your armor. With a full inventory, this attack won't have any effect. This is something I keep reminding myself, but if you have a Twisted Bow and a Shadow and want to kill Commander Zilliana, magic is better because of its accuracy. and you will have more space for food thanks to the imbued heart. If you have level 85 agility, getting to the Dagonoth Kings is a lot faster. Climb the rocks to get on top of the hill in Waterbirth Island, go down, and follow the second shortcut to get to the boss room in a fraction of the time it took before. For Duke Succulus, you can tick manipulate the mushrooms during preparation phase to collect them quicker. It's not like it saves a bunch of time, but it's the worst part of the KC, so the faster it goes, the better. General Grardor used to scare me in the past, but if you have a Bofa and Crystal Armor, you can do the boss without taking any damage. Check out the guide I made a few months ago for the tile markers to start working on those expensive Bandos drops. The Giant Mole now has water weakness in case you are a mid or late game Ironman without a Bofa, a Fang, and of course a Twisted Bow or a Shadow. Remember, you still want to do this with a hard Falador Diary to know where the mole is at all times. With a Venator Bow in hand, the Grotha's Guardians are now slightly quicker because of that rebound passive effect. Despite not damaging Dusk, Dawn will be dealt 2 hit splats, which is objectively better DPS than the Blowpipe. The Calphite Queen is one of those bosses you just dread doing, and if you're using Vengeance on the Lunar Spellbook, make sure to Venge when you are near the Calphite Queen. If you're not careful, the soldiers or the guardians can damage you and break the vengeance. Killing the King Black Dragon is normally quicker with a Dragon Hunter crossbow and Diamond Dragon bolts to ignore defense. If doing so, you want to be next to him praying melee to avoid as much damage as possible, since melee attacks are more common. This one may sound dumb, but I didn't know about it for the longest time. For your Kraken tasks, if you want to get into a private instance, payment can be taken directly from your bank. This way you don't need to bring 25 KGP with you every trip. Kriara can deal a lot of damage, so if you're taking on this God Rush Dungeon General, make sure to walk under whenever you are not attacking. Clicking the boss and going under immediately will save as much food as possible because it can be quite rough. Not only is the Scorching Bow great for the Abyssal Sire, but it makes Krill Tusaroth almost entirely AFK. Use a special attack on him to stun him for a few seconds, and by the time you use 2 or 3 specials, he will perish and leave you with some juicy loot behind. Remember to bring weapons with different attack styles to Moon's Apparel because they will be more susceptible to that type of attack. Stab for Eclipse Moon, Crush for Blue Moon, and Slash for Blood Moon. Next is way too complicated to give you 1 or 2 simple tips, so to learn more about her, go watch my guide. Not specifically for Nex, but if you want to camp any of the other 4 bosses here, bring an ancient item to use at the bank and go wherever you want. When you want to start learning Nightmare or Fosani, use a plugin called the Screen Markers. This way you can highlight your prayers to remind you what you need to pray during the prayer shuffle phase and avoid taking a ton of damage. The step back method is something you definitely need to get used to when fighting the Phantom Uspa. Move back a tile 1 tick before his attack animation, and with Protect from Melee enabled, you will avoid all damage until he swaps to the range phase. When you can afford high level items, the Arania boots make Arachnis 100% AFK with Auto Retaliate on. You will only need to pay attention when drinking prayer potions, or drink your Divine Super Combat, or even activate your Imbued Heart. In Scurious' lair, if you're running low on food, you can eat at the cheese every now and then, just like you can recover prayer at the Godwars Dungeon boss rooms every few minutes. It's not super useful, but it could save low-level players during a KC. If it takes too long to kill Skotizo, the Arclight or Ember Light will kill the altars in one shot. Oddly enough, despite being Demon-Bane weapons, the Scorching Bow and the Purging Staff do not work, so don't waste your time trying it out. During the Fortis Colosseum, your special attack energy does not regenerate when between rounds. For high-level players this might be more obvious, but this was done to avoid letting people getting into every wave with full special attack to milk it. For Temporos, remember that if you have these items at your disposal, the Crystal Harpoon provides more experience and the Infernal Harpoon lets us get more points per game. I was personally getting up to 85,000 XP per hour with the Crystal one, which makes it faster. If the Corrupted Hundliff is next to a wall when you enter the room, you can go in the opposite corner in order to drag him closer to the middle. This makes it so you can maneuver around him in case you need to run away from the floor or the tornadoes. The Waikoatil Tail Slam can be really tricky to time, but if you're standing far away, you will not take any damage. If you're on a small team, this is not super recommended because you will be missing on a lot of DPS when you get to it. Download a plugin called Better NPC Highlight and copy the numbers you see on screen. One of them will highlight the Abyssal Protector during the Leviathan Enraged phase, which will tell you when you are protected and when you aren't. You don't necessarily need to freeze the Whisper. After her specials, go to the very edge of the room and she will stop 1 tile away from you. This lets you activate Thralls for more DPS, but remember they won't follow you to the Shadow Realm. For the Thermonuclear Smoke Devil, you can Red X2 and from the door by setting up a cannon base in the opposite end. This guarantees the thermi doesn't move, and you will trade hits one by one, and save as much prayer as possible to extend your trips. When attempting the Inferno, it is now strongly recommended to bring a maximum of 3 prayer regeneration potions. Like I said before, this now gives more prayer per potion, but will do it gradually instead of instantly. For an easier challenge, if you're doing the fight caves for an extended period of time for the pet or a slayer task, get a plugin called Object Ground Hider. Copy the numbers on screen to hide annoying floor from all of the Tazar area to avoid a headache. A new mechanic we have in the game came with Vardorvis, and with the less HP he has, his defense will also drop. This is why you see some people recommend using a scythe for the last 20 or 30%, because he will be a lot weaker for tons of damage. It may seem like Vorkat's acid attack is completely random, but the tile right next to the entrance will always be acid free. If you're doing those combat achievements and he performs this special attack, run to this tile to avoid messing up. Technically not a boss, but with a new warmth meter mechanic at Wintertoad, the more pieces of warm clothing you wear, the more warmth you'll recover in small intervals. Never forget your Clue Hunter or your pieces of Pyromancer. The scaling update I've mentioned a few times made it so you can toggle between more experience and more loot at Zalcania. If you ask me, loot here is not super attractive, so I will always recommend favoring experience to get mining over quicker. The last one for this category is for Zulrah. A quick 2-for-1, if you stand on the yellow tiles next to the pillars, melee Zulrah will not be able to damage you. Also, remember that Extended Anti-Venom Plus is extremely useful for this fight. And now for 30 tips related to each room of every raid. This one is from November 2023, but remember that your first Dragon War Hammer or Elder Maul special on Tecton will guarantee a hit to make it less frustrating to start challenge mode chambers. Get the Cox Additions plugin to automatically highlight crab room tiles so you can have a much easier time stunning the crabs and knowing where to stand. This will turn a pretty annoying room into one of the easiest ones in the raid. If you haven't done chambers in a while, scavs now drop a smaller amount of supplies, but will drop all of them when they do so. You will guarantee some Endarkened Juice, Stinkhorn Mushroom, and Sicily along some planks. Other than Warhammer hits or Bando's Godsword on the Ice Demon, the new Tonal Sticks of Ralos is a good defense reducing item at the Ice Demon. Honestly, it's one of the 2 or 3 places where it shines, so bring it whenever you can. When you are at the Lizardman Shaman room, remember they cannot jump whenever you are near a wall. In case you try to lure them so you can safe spot them from the other side of the room, hang around in an open space so they can jump. The new Barbarian training perk also works with farming inside chambers, and the herbs now grow quicker than they did before. You have enough time to build your chest, deposit your stuff, get some vials, and start harvesting whenever you are done. Vanguards is one of the worst rooms in my opinion, but when I learned that you can stand under the Ranger Lobster and not take any damage from it, it made things much easier. Take advantage of this to hit the melee and the mage enemies. For the thieving room, start the looting chests as soon as you enter and make your way to the feeding area. I normally try to do 15 in one trip and 15 in another, because it takes a long time for the scavs to eat the worms and get out of the way. When you are doing Vespula, try to position your camera so your quick prayer orb is near the portal. This makes it so you can quickly click on your prayers, immediately followed by clicking on the portal, to avoid dying because you didn't activate them. If you do solo chambers and get the tightrope room, kill both the rangers and then go to full HP. If you pray mage and augury, you can cross the rope when tagging both the mages and barely take any damage to save precious time. Mimic the movement you see on screen to kill the guardians efficiently while saving some run energy. We are walking on a few tiles to avoid moving as much, and this will guarantee you don't run out of energy when doing this room. Vasta does initial damage based on your current health, and if you get this room first, make sure to avoid overhealing with an angler, because it will deal upwards of 90 damage. If you don't break quickly, there's a good chance you can die. Depending on what room you get for mystics, you can use some of the highlight tiles to safe spot them if you drag them correctly. This will make it so they attack less often, even though they don't deal a ton of damage. Thanks to the Mutadile room spawning an axe, you don't need to bring your own. I normally chop the tree, and when I see an XP drop, I click on the baby Muta, followed by clicking on the tree immediately after. Just make sure it doesn't go below 50 HP. This may sound cringe, but my tip for Olm is to watch my solo Olm guide from a few weeks ago. The fight is pretty convoluted to summarize it in a few tips, and I can guarantee that my guide will make you pretty good at Olm in no time. Getting into the Theater of Blood, I normally move every tick when fighting the maiden. This guarantees that I don't drown in blood if she decides to use a special attack, for which you only have one tick to react if she decides to do so. Something I didn't learn until recently is that a good sequence for bloat is 1 Chali, 3 Scythe, 1 Chali. This gives you enough time to get behind the pillar in the middle and avoid being hit for massive damage. Something I also learned recently when I started getting into more TOB is that the Nyla room always features the same spawns. If you have a good memory, you will always know exactly what type of spider comes out of which entrance all the time. So this set will throw range and damage balls in the order for which the party was recruited. The thing about them is that the way they bounce and what style they change to is completely random, so you will always have to watch out for that. For Zarpus, acid tiles will poison you even if you run over them. I thought that by running past them you would skip the damage because you move 2 tiles at a time, but this is one of the very few instances where trajectory actually matters. At the beginning of Verzik, make sure to attack 3 times with a scythe or 4 times with a whip before running behind the pillar. After this, it should be 2 scythe or 3 whip attacks to avoid being hit for big damage. Getting into the best raid in the game, but the worst room in the raid, if you use a combat style for which the baboons are weak to, you will now deal your max hit. This makes the Baba puzzle room incredibly quick, especially if done in a big team. For Baba, even if you have Mind the Gap active, going to the tile at the very top of the arena makes it so you don't fall through the gap. If you don't have time to move to the sides of the room, moving to the very top will be the way to go. For the Kefri puzzle room, you only need to do 1 puzzle in each side of the room. I've had a few people come to my TOA streams to ask if they need to do all 4 puzzles, so there's a chance that at least one person is going to benefit from this tip. During the fight, and when Kefri is about to throw the dung, if you hang out on the edges of the room, you will minimize the knockback and you can manipulate where the poop falls to avoid making a big mess out of the arena. If you get the TOA plugin, it will put up a timer in the pillar on the Akka puzzle room. When all the mirrors are lined up, click on it when the circle turns green, which will guarantee you can take the pillar down in 1 cycle at level 85 mining. If you mess up during the Akka special attacks, each quadrant has additional effects other than dealing damage. The most annoying ones are the white one, which will slow down your attack speed, and the red one causing you to take chip damage. In the Zebek puzzle room, you can run through the spikes even if it seems like they are out. You can also run over the poison with good timing, but this is more annoying because it moves super fast. Do this to go into Zebek at full health. When you get better at TOA, you can do something called wave skipping at Zebek, for which you don't need to go into the open spaces to avoid the attack. This is something I personally don't do, but could get you out of trouble during some runs. And finally, for the Warden fight, mark the tiles you see on screen and stand there to spam click a skull you can attack from far away. When they explode, you will click with good timing to do the skull skip and get more points out of your raid. Boys and girls, that's pretty much it for the first video of 2025. I hope you enjoyed and you learned something useful. If you did, tell me what your number 1 tip is for old school RuneScape, and if you include the term RSN and your username in your comment, you'll be entered in our weekly bond giveaway, for which we will pick a winner on Friday's stream. I want to thank each and every person you see on screen right now for supporting the channel monetarily. All your contributions go towards my starving family in a 3rd world country. If you want to be part of this list of legends, click the join button below to see all the cool perks you can get for a monthly subscription, in the videos, in the live streams, and of course in the Discord. Stay tuned for the next video, where we will be putting some wiki money making methods to the test to keep as a little time capsule and see how they evolved over the year. For now, I hope you have an amazing day, have an amazing week, and I will see you then. Peace.